Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge and welcome to my recap and review of Outlander Season 6, Episode 8, I Am Not Alone, also the Season 6 finale. And oh boy, we need to decompress this a little bit. A bit more of a bit less of a cliffhanger than I thought this would be. I think this episode very clearly wasn't the end of a season, you know what I mean? Which I know we've been told that this storyline is carrying over into the next one, of course, but it wasn't as aggressive as a cliffhanger as I was expecting, but also it didn't feel like a finale, in my opinion. But I'm not upset about that. I've just, in the way that arcs in television go, the way that arcs of Outlander have gone before this very much, it doesn't feel like one of those epic finales that they've had in the past. And, it definitely left us with a lot of questions. We didn't even find out who the murderer was. We haven't had that admitted yet. I guess I wasn't expecting that to not be revealed. I maybe should have. That is probably my bad for not thinking that through, that that's where it would end. But man, we're going to get into my play-by-play, but I just wanted to say a warm thank you to everyone who showed up for my season recaps this year. It had been a long time since I'd made these. I didn't know if there would still be interest, and while it's still very obvious that the bulk of what people are here for with me is my everyday romance content, I was so happy to have some of you who still were back. There were names in the comments that I recognized from 2 years ago, and that brings me so much joy to have y'all here with me. I don't do a ton of Outlander content throughout my year just because I have done it a lot over the last 4 years and it's not always what people are looking for, but I do have a few videos planned in the upcoming month. Just to give you a hint, I plan to list my favorite episodes of the show ever. I plan to maybe do 1 or 2 more character deep dives that I did in the past. That was always planned to be a series, but again, people's interest sometimes quickly wanes once the season is over, and that's just how it goes. But I still love Outlander. My love of Outlander isn't going anywhere, and I definitely have a reread of a few of the books planned for, in between the gap of season 6 and season 7, which hopefully we will get maybe even around the same time next year. Maybe we will. We'll see how it works out so that it's not as big of a gap. But there are some books in the middle of this series that I would like to reread, so, there'll be content that comes to me because of that. But otherwise, let's go ahead and dive in with this. There was a lot of emotional beats, is a lot what this was about. There isn't a ton of big parts of plot progression that are happening during this episode, but there was also some really beautiful scenes from the books that I just didn't think we were going to get, and they just appeared. One of them actually caught me off guard, and we're going to get to that one. I just was not expecting it at all, so that was interesting. But we start this episode with, there actually wasn't a cold open, but we did have after the credits, before the end of it, we got this little glimpse of Claire and Bree. We just see Claire's hands and Bree's head over the newspaper or whatever at a diner, and we very quickly discover what that's a reference to. But I was like, oh my god, what does this mean? Are we going to get to the future in this episode? I was like, oh no, what does this mean? And granted, again, if the full season arc of this was supposed to go through, episode 3 of season 7, maybe that is a reference ahead to being in the future later on. I don't know. It literally could just be that flash of memory Claire's talking about, but that's what we do. We speculate here. So anyway, we have that little tease, which we will later discover why it was there. But we have the Browns who have showed up to arrest Claire for the murder of Malva, and they are going to take her before a judge. That is what's going to happen. And Jamie said, you're going to take her over my dead body. And he runs, Claire and him run back into, well, no, that's not what happened. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Pull it back. Claire gets a gun. and they start beating Jamie. They grab him and these men are beating them, and Claire shoots a guy in her house who's trying to come up behind her. It appears that every door in the Frasers' house is open all at once. This house is ginormous. I've always in my head this house has been bigger than what I imagine in the books to be, just because in the books, like, Frasers, in my head, granted, this is in my head, I don't know what the layout really looks like from Diana's point of view. I think is there a map in one of the Outlandish companions? I would have to look through my Outlandish companions. I wonder if she ever did like a little sketching of this. But anyway, in my head, it's a more heavily wooded like area, and the like the house isn't as big as it is in the show in my head. But either way, that literally doesn't matter for where we're at. Like, I don't care. The house is beautiful, but it's huge. And there are, like, just acres of space in there. So there's all these doors and windows. And when you have people trying to sneak up on your house, it makes it a hard place to defend when you have so many sides that they can be coming in, you know? And so Claire gets a gun and she shoots the one guy, gets him out. And then she's able to shoot at the men who are beating Jamie, and he's able to get inside. And there's a couple people that get out. Mrs. Bug is able to escape from what we see. And then Lizzie and either Josiah or Kezzy, we don't know who, they are out at the like gatehouse, the stable there, and they're able to slip away before anyone stops them. So we have these people that know. We don't know where Ian is at. We don't know where all of our people that are on our side. We don't know. So it's time to batten down the hatches, and there is a shootout for quite a while. This stuff, you know, I'm not doing a play-by-play of this area of it, but there's lots of running around the house. Oh, Jamie apparently has a full battalion of guns hidden in the basement. I would like to hear some explanation for this. I wonder if, you know, once we get the commentary on, from like the writers from this, I always listen to those when of course, when the DVDs come out, because I'm pretty sure they don't keep a ton of guns like that, because there's literally in a cellar, and then there's a closet up there where there's just oodles of weapons. Like, weapons were difficult to have, and so is the ammo. You know, obviously that's very difficult when Jamie's trying to get those for the natives, and I know that he's working at collecting them throughout the books too. Like, he always wants to have a reserve of them. I just feel like it was never like referenced before this moment that he actually does have so many. I don't remember that being a thing. But anyway, I'm happy that they have it at this moment. Like, I'm not mad about it or anything. The beautiful house is just getting destroyed, and things kind of quiet down for now. Then we intersperse what we have of Jamie and Claire during this, you know, standoff with Bree and Roger. So first we just have a little clip of them where they are, you know, walking and talking. Like, what are they going to tell Jemmy one day? Are they going to tell him that he has the powers to travel? Will he leave us if he finds out? There's just a little bit of speculating with this. And this is a really short scene, but this is going to be, I think we get 3 or 4 of these with Bree and Roger, and each one is better and better in my opinion. So we'll be back with them in just a minute. Then we go back to Jamie and Claire, and there's been a ceasefire, and it's starting to get dark. And Jamie tells Claire they're going to try to burn us out. And she's like, who will come to save us? And he's like, if they haven't come, they're probably not going to. And Jamie's like, if I was them, I would try to burn us out. They'll try to smoke us out. That's what they're going to do. So they decide to have a last meal. And Jamie's like, we're going to need our strength if we're going to make it through everything. Then we go to Bree and Roger again, and they've set up their tent because they're traveling, you know, to see about getting Roger ordained or whatever he'll need to get to become a minister in this time. And we actually have a sexy scene with Bree and Roger, which we haven't had this season. I mean, we've had them being sweet together, but we haven't had a full-on, like, love scene of them. And this is another indication of how much better having an intimacy coach has been, because, I mean, I'll even admit, like, for me, Bree and Roger love scenes have been some of the most awkward ones throughout the seasons. Even though I know these two actors, these two people have great chemistry, there's just something about them that, you know, even though I'll be like, oh, sweet, they're having a scene, it will feel weird for some reason, like it just does. But this one was very sexy. It was very sweet. He's like, you know, we need to be quiet, Jemmy's over there. It is a good point to point out that, like, throughout history, many people have had to do their loving in the same tent as their children. It's just weird in our heads, but that's how it is. Parents of small children are probably, you know, well familiar with this, especially if you had kids who, you know, slept by your bed at different parts during your marriage or whatever. But it was a really beautiful scene. I loved them, like, having these awkward moments that you would have where, like, you know, he's trying to put it in one way and we're like, oh, that's not working, I'm gonna go on top for this. And they were just so beautiful together. Like, I really felt their connection in this sweet moment together, and it just made me really happy. It made me really happy to see them and to see them getting along so well. And really this season, like, their arc together, there are parts of them that have, you know, there hasn't been a ton of drama between them because they've been communicating very well. And I really appreciated getting to have that with them, because that's something that I love about Bree and Roger's relationship. Yeah, they fight, they bicker. Bree is hot-headed. Roger is, like, doesn't think things through before he speaks like most people do. But throughout their years together, they have a solid, beautiful relationship, just like Jamie and Claire do. They have a great example in them, you know? And I loved how this season, you know, arguments that they had or disagreements that they had, they never turned into big things. They would think about what was going on and they would talk it through. And I appreciated that so much, that things that could have blown up or been used for extra drama, the writers didn't take it that way. They kept it very much like, we have a disagreement, now we both think about it, now we discuss it. And I appreciated that. It's a maturing couple, and I loved seeing Bree and Roger get to do that. So then we go back to Jamie and Claire, and they are finishing their last meal. And this is when we get a reference to, Claire explains that prisoners on death row can request any meal within reason. And she said a lot of times they would request something that's comforting from their childhood. And Jamie asks her what her meal would be, and she explains it would be a burger and fries and a Coke from this restaurant. It was where Bree and I would go, and it was always what we would order. So that's the reference to that scene, that really quick vignette at the beginning of the episode, which was really sweet. I like that as an explanation. I like that a lot. Then we have more discussion, and they're kind of like laying by the fire, and you know, Jamie's really like guarding sentry there, and they're asking like where Ian is, where's everyone else? You know, Lizzie was able to get away, maybe she can get someone. And Jamie, you know, is like, I mean, if they can't make it here, it's just us. And are we going to be willing to, you know, I mean, Jamie says at one point, I can't remember if it's right here or not, he's like, I'll die before I hand you over to them. And Jamie says an act of contrition. Basically is like, you know, make sure that he's right with God if this is going to go badly. And then he's recalling a time when there was a fortune teller when he was in France when he was young, who had looked at his hand and told him that he was like a cat, that he would have 9 lives. And so he was asking about how many times he died, and Claire says, I never thought it would be such a comfort to hear how many times you've almost died, but it really is. So then we have the fisher folk arriving. We have Hiram Crombie, and we have some very hate-filled people who have always been suspicious of Claire this whole time. These people that Jamie let onto his land, that he gave them a place to settle, and it's all coming home to roost. All of their distrusts, you know, that jealousy, in my opinion, that Jamie has done so well for himself, it's all coming out. And Alan and Tom are there. But we have Hiram Crombie, who is saying that, you know, he promises not to hurt her. You can be judged. But one thing that, like, oh, it pisses me off that it gets said over and over is they keep saying that Jamie's the one who slept with her, and Jamie never says anything about it, okay? Like, I understand he in his self is like, me saying I didn't do it, they won't believe me. But it just pisses me off that he never says, like, you guys are fucking stupid. Like, why? Like, explain to me why this would make sense that I would be with this one. Like, he never puts it back on them. Ever. He just lets them say that about him. And even when they like continually say stuff about Claire, he never said anything because he knows it's a waste of breath. And I understand it. I understand it on the one level, but it also is just so frustrating to me that he continually doesn't say anything. It's just like, okay, keep saying it. I don't know. But it's supposed to be frustrating, I think, so that's good. They're saying take her to stand trial, and Alan is like screaming about it because Alan is a fucking pussy and we don't like him. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm upset about it. And they're like, we'll take both of them. And then the cavalry gets there, and Jamie's men, you know, his other men from Ardsmuir, Lizzie is there. All of them have shown up, and Jamie quickly realizes that it'll be a bloodbath if this happens. His men, his people, they will defend him, but it will become a massacre, and then they'll never be safe because this will always follow them around. It will be seen that they got away with what they did and just murdered anyone who questioned them, and they're in this horrible position, and Brown has found a way to checkmate them, and it's very uncomfortable. But then we have an unlikely voice of reason. We have Tom Christie step up, and he don't look too good. He don't look too good, y'all. He is not looking well. And he says that he will travel with them and make sure they are safe. And he says, like, you know, a trial will see whether they're innocent or guilty, but they will make it there. They will make it there alive. And so Jamie agrees. And, you know, he says to her, he's like, we have to do it this way. It will be a bloodbath for everyone, and our names are not going to be cleared if we can't do this. The trouble's going to be, how are we going to find a judge who won't be tainted? How are we going to find people who will give us a fair trial? That's the question we're going to be getting into. So then Tom says, let's wait till the morning. Let Jamie and Claire have a night together still. Let them sleep in their own beds, and we'll take off tomorrow. And so Jamie says, thank you. And they go to their room, and Claire is very sad. They're crying. And she's looking out the window at, you know, everything that they have built together. And Jamie tells her, he says, this will not be the last time that we see this by moonlight, our beautiful home. And he says, I swear it on my life. And then they have this beautiful love scene together. Absolutely beautiful. It is gut-wrenching. It is sexy. It is intimate. And you can just feel them and their home. Like, it was this very, like, spiritual experience. Like, honestly, which is what I believe that sex can be when it's with the true love of your heart. And you're in these intimate moments. That's what it can be. That's the very best that sex can be, you know. But it's also so tinged with, you know, is this the last time that we'll be in this bed, that we'll be in this house together, you know? So, yeah, now they are put in a wagon, and they're taken away from the ridge in dishonor. And they, you know, we have a few different spots with this. I'm honestly going to, like, push over a lot of this because it was very, very hard for me to watch. And I won't lie, sometimes I had to mute a few things and just read the subtitles because I get so squirmy and uncomfortable during stuff like this. The show did a marvelous job. You're supposed to feel so uncomfortable, but it's very difficult for me. I was like, I'm reviewing this, you need to watch it, but it was very difficult. So we're on this trip, and it becomes really clear that they're having to go a very long way. So there are different towns that they're getting close to who don't have judges or even, like, sheriffs. Things have been disbanded because of, like, the war, or I mean, like, the murmurings of war, and loyalties being divided. And of course they won't take them to Cross Creek because that's where Jocasta is. And is it Lionel or, now I'm getting, no, Lionel Brown's the dead one. Whatever, we'll just call him Brown. I can't remember who the living one is at the moment. But he is like, we don't want him to be in a town where his aunt has influence. We want to go somewhere where he doesn't. And he tells Jamie, like, we're going to push on to Wilmington. And in every town we go through, I've told them who's coming through, this adulterer and his wife. And they're all going to be baying for your blood. So he's spreading propaganda, putting it through the land that Jamie Fraser is this horrible man and Claire is a witch and a killer, and it's just spreading ahead of them. And then we finally have just a teeny peek of some good news. We have Ian appear in the woods, because I did miss this at one point. I spoke a little too soon, because we do get the scene of Ian showing up and Lizzie, looking horribly sick and awful, runs out and tells Ian what's going on. We have that happen. Then we go to a Bree and Roger scene. Sorry, they flip between all these so much. This is why I take good notes. So we go to Bree and Roger again, and we have just one of my favorite scenes from the book. Absolutely one of my favorites. I'm so excited. So they are riding in their wagon, and Jemmy is like sitting up with them. And first, he's adorable, and he bends over Bree's lap and is talking to her belly. It's so cute, and I love this because it's starting to spread a little something about Jemmy that, I'll just say this because it's not a, like, epic spoiler, but Jemmy has a bit more of a gift than, like, even more so than, like, people who can travel, okay? He has a bit of, like, an extra special gift, and so does the child that we have not met yet inside of Bree. They have this very special connection with each other that is not even fully fleshed out in the books where I'm at, but it is something that becomes obvious very soon. And so Jemmy, he speaks to the baby in what could just be adorable. Like, it is just adorable that he would talk to her, but it is like he's more aware of this sibling that's coming than the average little boy would be. But he speaks to the baby and he says, I love you so much already. And I was like, the cuteness of that little baby whisper. You know, he whispers like a little boy does. I love you, baby. And I was just like, my heart is in puddles. But while he's bent over her lap, Bree, you know, she thinks that's cute, but then she notices he has lice. So they stop by the river to cut his hair. So they cut his hair. And then Bree notices a mark on his head. And it's funny because I actually have something kind of like this thing right in my hair here. That my grandmother actually has too. And anyway, Bree's like, what is this? And they look at his head and he's like, oh, it's no worry. I can't pronounce the name, but it's a thing. And she's like, well, I've never seen it before. And Roger's like, well, it doesn't come around till 2 or 3. That's when I got mine, and it's hereditary. And they all just like stop for a second. And Bree is like, what did you say? And Roger's like, it's hereditary. And so this is for them one of many confirmations. I will say this, over the books there I think are 3 or 4 confirmations we have throughout a couple of books confirming that Jemmy is Roger's son. But for the show, this is, you know, mixed with the fact that he can travel, which could be from Bree and Claire that he can, but he will have it on both sides now. And we know that he is Roger's son because it's in like the same place on his head. And so then Roger says, you know what? I'm feeling kind of scratchy myself. I think you should cut my hair too. And oh my gosh, it just brings me so much joy. Like, it brings me so much joy. I could weep about it. I love it so much. So happy for them. Okay. It's at night. We have been traveling. Jamie and Claire have been being ridiculed, things thrown at them, mocked, you know, all those horrible things along this way. And they're in this little, like, it's called like a meat camp or something is what Jamie called it. And the men are like fighting and rabble-rousing and all that fun stuff. And Jamie needs a bathroom break. And the man who's watching him is like, well, I don't think you're going to run away without your wife. And he like wanders over to watch one of the fights that's happening. And when Jamie goes to pee, Ian's face pops up in the woods. And he's been following and watching. And Ian is like, say the word, there are more with me. And Jamie says, he's like, well, we'd be able to get away, but we would live in shame forever. Like, there would be more people coming after us. Our name would not be clear. So leaving at this time isn't the right time. They need a way to get out of here and to be found innocent. So finding a court may be the best option for now. We don't know. So Ian promises to keep an eye on them, and Jamie goes back to Claire. Now the next day, we stop, and Jamie is taken from Claire. And this was one of the parts where I like muted it while it was happening because I was crying. But Jamie gets taken away from Claire, and Claire gets held back and is going to be taken on to Wilmington, and we don't know what's happening to Jamie. And Tom Christie says he's going to stay with her to make sure that she isn't, that she isn't killed. And this is where someone even sent me a question about this. And again, I don't remember. I do think Jamie maybe goes with, like, Tom goes with him. But it makes sense in the show when they say that Tom is the only reason Claire hasn't been killed yet, because all they want to do is just hang her and be done with it, because these men traveling with Brown, they never meant to be traveling this long. So I fully admit, I don't know which one is book accurate or not. I know Jamie is separated from her and Claire gets taken onward, and I don't remember if Tom went with Jamie or with Claire. I don't remember. So if anyone in the comments does, let me know. But either way, how the show did it, I'm okay with it because it makes sense what the logic the show uses. So if that's what the book did, I wouldn't be surprised. But if it's the other way, I wouldn't be surprised either. So anyway, sorry for a little gap in my knowledge there, but anyway. So then we have some voiceover because we are skipping some time here because there's still about 10 days from Wilmington. And then we have Claire's voiceover saying that Tom was right. Because Tom says he's like, your husband, he's going to be okay. I need to stay with you because that's what I gave my word to do. So they make it there and Claire gets taken into the prison. Tom gives her some money to take care of her. And he says that the Lord will take care of the righteous. And she's like, do you think that I'm righteous? And he swears to see her safe, and he gives her some money to, I'm sure to make sure she gets fed and she can bribe people. And then that's like the last we see of Claire. We don't see Donner in there. We know that it wasn't when they were in Wilmington that we saw him go into the prison. So it can be assumed that he's maybe in one of those cells. They just haven't showed us all of them yet. But that is the prison he was taken into. That was a long time past at this point. So, I wonder. But, yeah, that's the last we see of Claire. Then we go to Jamie, and we have a nice dramatic little ending here where Jamie is tied to a post, and we find out he's going to be sold to be transported back to Scotland and to never see his wife again, which is absolutely terrifying. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? But then we have Ian and the natives show up to rescue him, and we have the chief there who says, I told you I'd be fighting with you, bear killer. And so they're killing all the people, and then there's one guy left, and Jamie's like, wait, don't kill him. He knows where Claire's is. And Ian says, we do too, uncle. And they shoot him in the face, and it was extremely satisfying. And the last scene of season 6 is Jamie on a white horse with the tribe of the natives going off to rescue Claire. And that was scene. That was the end. And so there's still so many things we don't know. Like, we don't know, is Claire going to get a fair trial? what's up with Tom? Why does he seem so different? He's so subdued. He's not on his high and mighty anymore. Who is the father of the baby? Who is the killer of the baby? I know in my last video, a lot of you had guesses that were centering around certain people. Is the father of the baby and the killer the same person? And now we don't know. And now I still can't talk about it. I'm very upset because I was very much looking forward to getting to dive deep into who Malva's baby daddy is. I was very upset about this. But on the plus side, you have a year and maybe you can read the books to find out. Sorry, I hate being that bitch. You know that I try not to be that bitch here, okay? But I really thought they were going to tell us so we could talk about it. And now I can't talk about it. And I'm kind of upset. But overall thoughts, as I have been almost a broken record this year in a wonderful way, I have enjoyed every episode that came out. I usually do a ranking at the end of the season. I do plan to do that. What I plan to do is I'm going to have a marathon for myself and get to watch all 8 episodes again. And I will rank them, you know, 1 to 8 to say my favorite, my least favorite. But I happily have to say that I don't have a clear-cut least favorite. Whereas in seasons past, I've always had 1 or even 2 episodes that I was like, these sucked. And this season, I can't easily think of one that I'm like, this is my least, you know. There may be one that will end up being my least favorite, but it will probably be just because all of them are so good. So I'm excited to do that. But yeah, this has been an amazing season. I keep saying that. I'm sorry. I can't stop. It was so good to be back into Outlander. I'm always so excited to reread the books. I'm doing a readathon, a read-along with some of the romance community for Sarah J. Maas right now. But I would love to, at some point, do an Outlander read-along and have it be where we did like 1 book a month or something like that. But it's not going to get set up right now, unfortunately. But that could be a really fun thing to do. So let me know what you think about that. Yeah. I think I wrap it up here. It feels so weird to end it all, but I think I will, once a lot of my friends have got to see the rest of it, maybe I'll do an Outlander hangover show like I did 2 years ago, which was a lot of fun. I did it with the gals from my Outlander Purgatory and some other of my friends who watch and read Outlander. So maybe we'll have to do something like that this year. So thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. Let me know maybe what your favorite episode was. Let's do that. Let me know what your favorite episode was, and I will maybe talk about that when I do my ranking. So thank you so much for watching. Definitely check out my other Outlander content if you'd like to. You could maybe even check out my review for book 6 if you want to know who the baby daddy is. Or maybe you are a very patient person and you think you can hold back from finding out for the next year. More power to you. And yeah, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye.